Hello, welcome to F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T podcast 88. You fat ladies, or you can't say that anymore. The future's here to stay. It's a futile fall show then, but not tonight. Thank you to Annotated for Fuel track record. Oh, brother, Puritans Falling 5 Church of Fall and all them what fall. We are the second or third best fall podcast in the world, joined by Pip, Billy William, Pip, Billy Rugby. How you, Phil?
I'm excellent, my man. Excellent.
Very good. We've had this episode's all about Luciani, as people know, because it'll be in the title of the episode that they see before they even click. So that's not a secret. Exactly. And we will be talking about that a lot. Also with us, Lord Sage Temple and Pemberton Shyamalan Walker, both absent from room and now have returned.
Perfectly timed.
Probably not joined by Marky Tiny Tim.
Baby crack.
I know. It's a hard life. By Marky Tiny Timmy Twatwa, who's got out to add to tonight's proceedings, apparently.
He's refused to say anything on the matter.
I'm Treebeards O'Shaughnessy, and there are no patron chip-ins. I repeat, none from Michael E., Max W., or Leon, although Leon did say a couple of things. I might drop him. And we have a special guest coming on real soon. Fingers crossed, Funky Si Wolstencroft of the Mighty Fall. I can't believe it. The first actual Fall member in the wild.
We've done it. We've done it. We've got one.
It's not a bad one either.
Oh, no, he's a good one. He's
top draw shit.
Indeed. Simon obviously started in Ben Sinister just before the play of Luciani was put on. Now, just a little bit of background on the play itself. If you come into it cold, it's called Hey Luciani, The Life and Codex of John Paul I. It's a play written by Marquis Smith. The only full-length play we know of him writing, and definitely the only one that was staged, although, of course, there was the ballet Curious Orange a few years later. It's based on conspiracy theories, the book In God's Name by David Jalop, which is about conspiracy theories about the death of John Paul I, a pope of only three days, as he's famously stated in the fall song, Hey Luciani. We are going to be putting this show on in a mere 3 weeks' time, the 23rd of September in Prestwich. Now, 2 shows, because the first one sold out lickety-split, sort of. Pip is really running that ship, because I'm obviously on the other side of the world, but we will talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But the play itself was staged in December 1986. It ran for 2 weeks in the Riverside Theatre in London town. And there's a whole bunch of songs that appeared on Ben Sinister and later came out on the singles around, especially the Ghost in My House single. So we'll have a listen to those, but you probably already know what they are. They're not well-known songs, but we've come to really love them over the I can't want to speak for anyone else. I've come to really love them over the course of prepping this play.
Oh, they're great songs. It's a real peculiar mix that works well together, isn't it? Where the sum's greater than the number of its parts.
Absolutely. And so a little bit of background from Fall Land is Ben Sinister, which was the 9th studio album, came out in September of 86, so just before, about 3 or 4 months before this play, and was recorded in June. So written probably concurrently, a lot of the stuff with Hey Luciani, although there's only a little bit of a crossover with the album. Carl Burns was fired or left just around the time that Ben Sinister was starting. Paul Hanley stepped in for a few songs before Funky Si Wolstencroft came in halfway through the album. And of course, we'll be asking him all about that. And interestingly enough, Julia Addison was engineering that album like a decade before she actually joined the band and had, I don't know if we'll get onto this part with Si, but had a hand in him leaving the band when suddenly Mark decided that they were only going to do her songs and she was basically going to be in charge. I might not be representing anybody well in that story, but hey, it's a good story. So the original play, which Smith described as a cross between Shakespeare and The Prisoner, the myth is that it was written on beer mats and delivered in a shoebox to the director of the play. There may be some truth in the initial ideas, but there's pages floating around in that Excavate book that's awesome, has a bunch of pages, and we were very lucky to be shared in on a whole bunch of pages by a guy called Pete Dreeth and our friend Danny No and a guy called Barry Riley, all posted a whole bunch. So we got maybe 20 or 30 pages. But as far as I know, there are not full scripts flying around. The play itself had Trevor Stewart, John Paul I, and the performance artist Leigh Bowery, who was in a bunch of F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T, also played a part as Bishop Marcinkus. Charlie Hanson, I think, was the director. So he works pretty much with Ricky Gervais these days. So he's gone on to big stuff.
Going on to work with the Twat.
Apparently so. James Brown, editor of Loaded, not James Brown Soul Singer, was in the original play. Smith refers to him as J.Loaded Brown in one of the songs. Jackie O'Malley, who does the A to Z of Manchester with Funky Si podcast, she was in the original play in a couple of roles. Michael Clark, the dancer who then went on to be in Curious Orange, was already doing some stuff with the Fall and he appeared. So there's almost no footage. But if you go on YouTube, there is like a 2-minute section that gives you some really intriguing snippets of what it may have looked like. Before I get into maybe describing the plot of the play and the basic characters, Phil, maybe Al, how did we come to be doing this and where are we in that?
Well, you Daft Punk has asked me if I wanted to do it, and I'm stupid enough to go, yeah, go on then.
Yet again, it's been a bit of a weird genesis, hasn't it, the whole thing? It's really, the podcast was the start of it all, isn't it? And we've all kind of committed to this ludicrous adventure. And then I can't remember when you started it, but I remember you starting to talk about Hey Luciani and maybe getting hold of some of, you talked about the transcript. I remember that, you getting hold of that off somebody's website, I think. And then we talked about maybe having some special podcast episodes where we might do some scenes out of Luciani or something like that, maybe as a way of just, because we don't have enough episodes to do.
No,
as a way of kind of padding this podcast out a bit.
Triple figures.
And then, you did all the heavy lifting, really. You took that transcript and you've pieced together a structure of who you, like, attributing lines to people and all that kind of thing, and reading the book and trying to piece together exactly what this crazy plot was within this story. So, I
appreciate that credit. I think we shared the heavy lifting on that, but I did take that initial transcript from a fellow called Pete Conkerton. I asked to come on this episode, but I guess he's a busy chap, but he's welcome to drop by any time. But he took those audio transcripts, a couple of decent recordings of the play, and he turned it into a transcript, which is still on the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T. It was like, we turned it into a script, and then it was like, okay, how do we make this make sense?
The video footage.
Yeah.
The video footage you were talking about, there's some clues in that, isn't there, in terms of, and obviously the cast list, you can kind of work out the dynamics of some of it. But even in rehearsals with Al and the other people who are involved and stuff, we've still said, no, this line cannot be this person, and shift stuff around and hang on, why have we got exposition in the middle of this speech? That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah.
Lots of bits about dropping your kecks and curling one off.
Oh, yeah, I just added them this week for fun. Did you notice that?
I got 5 of them. There was like 1 left in, which went down very well on Thursday night.
Brilliant. So, and we're very lucky. Steve Church of the Fall has come on board relatively late in the game, and I hear good things about him.
He's slotted right into the madness.
Beautiful. And of course, my cousin Froze, who hates the Fall, he's in, so that's always good fun. So it's going to be a radio play style performance, and there'll be a matinee, it looks like, and then an evening performance. It's a small room.
Yeah, you've jumped over a bit there. Let's just manage people's expectations a little. We're not doing a full-on dramatic performance. We will be doing a radio style performance of the script. So there's nothing left out. It's probably a little bit added, but it won't be a Leigh Bowery spectacular, will it?
No, but I also think don't underplay it, because there will be movement and costumes and voices and noise and things like that. But yes,
Everyone will enjoy it.
Everyone will have a
they
lot.
Can claim to have seen Hey Luciani after.
Exactly. And then who knows what the universe will do. But obviously Mark's pulling some strings here and there because things are slotting into place beautifully. Thanks to the people at Prestwich Arts Festival. Pete, the fellow who's running that. All the Pete's are involved. So why don't we give ourselves a treat, if nobody else, and read the first little bit.
So I think we should get Ezra to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it.
All righty. So
you've got it, haven't you?
Europe, 1870. The First Vatican Council meets and guarantees an infallible pope. Spain's gang is in disarray, and the top gang in France is recovering from a fight it could not finish. Meanwhile, in Alsace-Lorraine state, F. Nietzsche, hospital orderly, manages Turks and Prussians. Turks! Encouraged by the manipulating British gangs to play a bigger part than realised in the forthcoming shootout scenario.
Very good. So that's how the play opens. And essentially the plot core of it is about a Shakespearean style set of conversations, some in South America based around escaped Nazis, and some in the Vatican. And the David Yallop book, In God's Name, sets out the idea that these characters of Marcinkus, Bishop Marcinkus, and Vilo and Gelli. So Marcinkus is a cardinal from Chicago, Archbishop, and he is also head of the Vatican Bank. Vilo is the Secretary of State for the Vatican, and Gelli is a Freemason, a very powerful Freemason, and also a mafia banker. And these three essentially are cooking up a plot to murder or to get rid of the Pope. Of course, it's written by Mark Smith, which means none of this is super linear, but it still does hang together. Alongside that, we have the Israeli commandos that are searching for Martin Bormann in Argentina. Martin Bormann being Hitler's right-hand man who disappeared. And if you want to fall into a rabbit hole, talk to Phil about Martin Bormann for a few days. And then alongside that, there's a large section of sleep debt snatches that are a wonderful exploration of the psyche of not only Luciani, but also Marquis Smith in a whole series of very interesting vignettes. What says you, Phil, of the plot and characters in this play?
Yeah, that was a good summing up. The first act is as straightforward as it gets. The second act is where it gets a lot more slippy in terms of the storytelling and the sort of dream logic that's in place. I think there's, for fans of Marquis Smith, that will probably be the bit they enjoy the most, because it's something where you can really enjoy the language getting played with. It's still telling the same story, but he's just stretching the metaphors as wide as they'll go, really, I guess, is how we've started to see his writing. And it was funny, I was thinking, this is like the third theatrical thing that we've put on. We've done a couple of plays we've written, and now we're putting this on. And it's one of the things that I think we've had a bit of criticism for in the past is being a bit obscure in our storytelling and stuff. But the more times that sort of you spend with a text, the richer it becomes, isn't it? And you can kind of see where the sort of more complicated storytelling is going. It's a lot of fun, though. I mean, so much of it's left field, isn't it? And it's his tongue is firmly in his cheek when he's talking about certain things, and then when he talks flippantly about things, you know he's probably being quite serious about it. And there's some pretty deep themes in there, isn't there, about colonialism and exploitation and corruption and stuff like that.
Well, there is. It's Smith's writing, and we always give him the benefit that he means that, but then it's so layered. Yes, it's a pretty straightforward set of conversations about a pope that's viewed from several different perspectives. There's some, you get the radio who's kind of questioning his newer approach, and then you've got the people within the Vatican that are absolutely against him, because he was beginning to talk to people about artificial contraception and about, God forbid, helping the poor and stopping the Vatican's many tentacles into the world of money.
And at the same time, it's not like he's that radical. is it? Because it's like the more radical end of the church, he actually starts tempering like liberation theology and his course theology and all that kind of stuff. He's critical of that, isn't he? So he's quite a moderate voice, really.
Yeah, the idea of him being a down to earth that is in touch with the common person, that's his heritage and background. And the whole idea of that intro that we just heard there is setting the scene for the First Vatican Council many years before, when papal infallibility came, which basically meant, in the context of this play, the Vatican can do whatever it wants. The Vatican cannot be wrong. So as long as it can justify its investments. I mean, we'll read a little bit now, actually, and it basically spells out the Vatican's involvement in arms dealing. Now, of course, this is Marky Smith interpreting multiple texts, but why don't we get Ezra and Al to read? Ezra, if you don't mind being Gelly. Now, Gelly, as we said, is he's the gangster. So if you want to do a gangster voice, feel free. And Villa, Al, so Villa, as we said, is the Secretary of State for the Vatican. In God's Name, I would say, isn't a brilliant book, but the first half is very interesting for the tangled webs that are woven by these main characters. So take it away, young men.
Oh, sorry. Do I need to find the?
I need to share my screen. Sorry.
Yeah.
That
He's good, but he's not that good.
I'm very excited. We've got Si coming on in 10 minutes, and we're talking about this beautiful piece of art that we're investigating.
Oh, it's all aflutter. We've got a real-life F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T member on, and we're all
Off you go.
Antoniozi.
Aye, come on.
What news regarding the elections? I relish Ali's distorted reflections. Anton.
Announced 7:18 p.m. First message, Sunday 27th. We'll meet Dublin a conquest. SW American efforts. All fellow fighters appreciate the results in Rome. Lack Florence.
An open-ended transmission via here. Don't fob me, Antok. A big day over the sea. His compatriot, Bishop Gorilla, in there with ALBINO.
Mendoza would like a conversation regarding your words, and as a favour will supply you with full information, if requested, on the Jew terrorists who have, he claims, just passed Valdivia southbound.
Now, idiot. Well, I suppose it has come to this, the interest on loans to our old German comrades in steel. Well, there are no other amusements at home for a while anyway with our two ex-United, with Pope Al-Masim El Residente.
And scene. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen.
I had some accent drift in that.
he got a little bit, we already have one, go away. Got a little bit Python, but you know what? It's beautiful. It's all the beauty of it. That scene is the two of them in Argentina discussing Israeli mission to find Bormann that's on the way. And basically, it's unclear exactly as what's happening with this money, but there's some shady business going on. Alistair, what's been your experience so far of the play?
It's been a good laugh. Just like a couple of mates getting together, trying to work out what makes sense of the thing. Because, I mean, like the play, when it first came out, was sort of seen as being a little bit on the confusing side. And like reading Funky Si's book, got some shit reviews, like one in the Times, I think. He's making a lot more sense now. You know, we've kind of I've put the script together from the transcription of the original play. That, again, is involved like quite a bit of legwork, really, like trying to sort of like piece everything together in a way that makes sense as much as we can do.
I mean, the idea is I think some people said that it did, maybe dismissed it as not making sense. And the idea is that it does make sense. Fun, you're going to follow it, and we'll give you some hints along the way, but don't dismiss it as nonsense. See it as what it is, Smith's take on a complex idea. And as I said, we'll give you hints along the way. I think we're guests here.
Hey.
How are you doing, Simon?
Hello, yeah, I'm not too bad. Who's that fella there with the beard?
I am Phil.
Okay.
I'm Phil.
Yeah, I'm Alistair. Yeah.
Can't quite see the top of your head, Alistair. That's better. That's better.
What's
Okay.
it there? It looks really nice.
That kit is a Ludwig Vistalite from the late 70s that I bought off an old friend of my mum's, actually, in Sale, John Rose, who used to play with Freddie and the Dreamers or one of them crew in America. He didn't play on the hit, but he had a shot in Altrincham at first, and he moved to Sale. But when we was at Alty Grammar, we used to go in, me and the lads Ian and John Wire, and looking at all the gear, and that's when I first met him. But it turned out my mum knew him, because my mum used to ride horses, and his wife, John Rose, was an Olympic show jumper.
Yeah.
And anyway, but I bought the kit off him for about 500 quid just when I left Ian Brown solo years. And I'm actually getting it ready for the tour that I'm doing with House of All.
Right,
next week.
That's exciting.
Were you playing on the tour?
We're playing at York on this Thursday, Sunderland Friday, Hebden Bridge Trades Club Saturday, and then the following weekend we go to Bristol, Southampton, Lewes, and near Brighton. 6 shows again, like we did earlier in May.
Alistair's very disappointed you're not playing Wigan, though.
Get in touch with the agent to try and get us on there. I'm game for doing loads of as many gigs as possible. I've already told Martin I'll play any time. It's my last shot at this. Going on the road, getting any youngies.
It's a really some good stuff. Are you enjoying playing it out and about?
Yes, I am. But I'm more excited about the second album, which will be out in the new year.
Right.
It's untitled yet, as far as I know. It's up to Martin to come up with a title. But it's vastly superior, in my opinion, to the first album.
Nice.
And we'll be doing some tours, and we're booking some dates in Europe already, end of February, I think. It's all systems done. Yeah, it's great. It's really worked. We've not played together since May. Went back in the rehearsal room, and it's so much easier now. We've got 6 gigs under our belt. It's just got muscle memory sort of thing on the kit. You know where all the parts are in the song. Should be good. But we're not doing any of the new ones off the new album. It's a shame. I wanted to. Maybe I might throw one in. Who knows?
Well, thanks for coming by tonight. Tonight, I want to focus mostly on that era around Luciani because we're going to put the play on in a few weeks.
23rd.
It'd be great if you were able to come along. That'd be absolutely fantastic. But
I think I might be able to pop down.
Sorry, it's lagging a bit here. I keep talking over you. Sorry.
It's all right. No, please bear in mind I've got tinnitus real bad. So if I have to keep going like that.
All right, Al's a drummer. We're used to dealing with drummers.
Oh, okay. What, are you a drummer?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I played in like bands for about 17 years. Did a band with P.O.D.C.A.S.T session years ago, but I was playing guitar.
Yeah. Did you ever meet the great man?
I did, yeah, a couple of times. That was like at P.O.D.C.A.S.T sessions for other bands. So like I went watching, I think it was the Von Bondis, wearing a Melt Banana t-shirt and got invited down to a Melt Banana P.O.D.C.A.S.T session a couple of weeks later, but I couldn't make it. And then I spoke to him again at T. Roastmere, who was like a German techno guy doing a live session.
Oh, yeah.
I was went down there with like loads of stuff. Yeah, play that.
Meat and potatoes. I did at his 50th birthday party at Acklam Hall, as I knew it, under the Westway, where the Clash used to hang about and all that. I think we played there, maybe mid-tour. It was a good night, and I just shook his hand and said, "How you doing?" And he smiled. And of course, Mark didn't want to get to know him too closely because he wanted to keep an air of mystique, of course, like he would, good old man. But yeah, we played there and it was fine, and sort of a lot from Leeds around that time. It might have been afterward, but they had a dog anyway, and it pissed on the side of the tour bus. And Mark was really really angered by this, How dare they, let their dog piss against our bus, against the wheel of the bus. Because it was on a string, They said, look at the state of them. Fucking peasant. I think it was one of them lot anyway, from that era.
House of Love, one of those fellas. That was the night you played Race with the Devil, I think, maybe, and you only did it one time. Might have been that.
Yeah, I do remember playing that one. It's about 1991, was it?
Something like that. At some point, we'd love you to come back and and talk about the whole 11 years you did with the group. I mean, but tonight, if it's okay, we just want to focus on that era when you first joined in Ben Sinister and then into Luciani, and just have a little bit of a chat about what you remember about that.
How long do you want to make this last? This conversation?
We've got all day, Si. How long have you got?
Well, as long as you want. I just need to pace myself, the story.
Hang on, let me put kettle on.
All right.
We're huge fans, and everyone that listens to this podcast wants to hear anything that you've got to say, that you want to say. So it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
And your book's fantastic. You can drum, but you can't hide. So if you haven't read that, Alistair's got his copy there. If you haven't read that, please go have a read because it's a really good read. And your podcast, the A to Z of Manchester, also
Funky Si A to Z.
Yeah,
it's very popular. We didn't have sponsors or anything. and we got a lot of views according to Jackie.
So first off, if I get it right, you were in a band called the Weeds, supporting the Fall, and Smithy asked you to join. One of the first things you did was the song Hey Luciani.
Of course, I've known of the Fall since my school days. We had a classmate, Andy Waite, who used to bring in his singles, Roche, Rumble. You know, he's so fond of these records, he wouldn't let you touch them or anything. And I thought, oh, who's that, the Fall? But it wasn't really till This Nation Saving Grace came out, which is still considered the best album they did. We were playing it when we were in the Weeds, rounded Hume, and, you know, squatting about, smoking, you know, spliffs, having a life of Riley with her. And that was always on the turntable. And I got to meet Carl Burns. And somehow, it was Andrew Berry, the singer of the Weeds. He used to cut Marquis Smith's hair. And so he invited us on tour. We did about 6 or 8 gigs. We went up to Aberdeen, all the way up there, in what was known as the White Chariot, which is my Triumph Dolomite. His engine blew up late, 86, yeah. So we did the gigs. It was great. I loved all the tension in the band of the Fall. I was watching Mark, and I never actually spoke to him the whole time, but until we got to London, and we were supporting them there, and he came up to me outside at the back of the gig when we were loading the gear in the Salford van hire, and we're all due to go home. He said, "Hey, Cock, can I have a word with you?" I've not spoke to him yet, but I checked him out, and he checked me out. He must have seen something in me, and he obviously heard me playing the drums. I'm not saying I'm the technically most brilliant drummer in the world, and I don't do that many rolls, which he liked, I think. He always told me about James Brown finding his drummers $5 if they put a drum roll unnecessarily, you know, in the song as we were going along, which I always thought was dead cool. He was full of good facts like that, Mark. Very interesting. I learned so much off him. But yeah, he said, I'm kicking out Carl Burns, who of course I knew, joined the band. I said, if you give me a contract that's going to pay me the same who was getting paid at the Greater Manchester Council in the kitchen, canteen, county, although by that time I've been sent away to Bolton, Farnworth, cooking for a load of truck drivers, waste disposal, because of an incident on the roof whereby I've been watching an IRA trial going ahead at the back of County Hall there in Piccadilly. And there was a sniper on the roof, and I wasn't supposed to be on the roof. Basically radioed through the sniper, so there's a guy up there. Who is he? And I got sent out to Farnworth. And when I left Farnworth, God bless them, they bought me a stick bag. The girls that work for me, Sharon and Tracy. I didn't do anything. It was just egg and chips all day. And anyway, I joined the band, and it was great. We went recording straight away. We did the Festival of the 10th Summer gig at GMEC, which was fantastic. Backstage, it was a bit like a hospital, which in fact it became during the pandemic, you know, with screens everywhere in between the bands. Smith's New Order, Fall. It was really exciting. And it was the first time I really got paid for drumming, and I thought, yeah, I like this. No contract, as I remember it, but I used to go up every month and go and get a check, because we all lived in South Manchester apart from Craig, and I had a car, and I go around to Marks and pick the checks up. But we were up and running by, you know, July, August of 86. Went in, did Ben Sinister, a couple of studios, Yellow 2, which is the sister studio of Strawberry in Stockport. Basically on an industrial estate, but we did a lot of it at Abbey Road, which was just amazing. It was a tick-off list for me. I was over the moon. You know, Mum and Dad were alive then. My mum was dead proud of it. My dad was dead straight. He was a GP. He wanted me to get a proper job, but I felt really good about everything. Academia left behind. It's all happening quite fast.
I want to ask you, like, upon joining the Fall, did Marquis Smith, did he give you like listening homework or anything like that?
He used to play a lot of vinyl records in his house there on his stereo on the black dining room table that he had with a fish tank behind bubbling away. That's where he kept his money, behind the fish tank. He did. Yeah, he played stuff on the bus and, you know, in the van. when he used to get in the car, I used to drive him about, you know. I didn't consider myself this driver by any means. He liked the fact I had a BMW 3 Series one time, because he did Armin had one.
Good recommendation.
I remember when Marcia was on the Oh Brother, and the episode of Oh Brother with you on it is fantastic. But the one with Marcia on, she talks about when she joined, Smith gave her like a stack of records and said, okay, these are all our albums. You might be playing anything from these. Did you do anything like that, or did you just go?
No, he never gave me records, Mark, but he did buy me tape when we were on tour. He used to buy me rap tapes, you know, in Italy. But he was really into rap, and he realised that I was really into rap and funk. The Sugar Hill Gang. I was kind of more into the funky stuff, which is why when we did Lost in Music, I was absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
And the Ardeen Taylor, There's a Ghost in My House. Shame we only got one shot at it, you know, one take. Mark was a one-take wonder, wasn't he? Crack the whip. What you doing messing about? So he was aware that I liked funky stuff.
Are you saying you did Ghost in My House in one take?
Pretty much, yeah, 2 at the most. I can't remember. Well, we recorded that in Bluetooth Studios, which is where the Clash recorded Bank Robber. It's knocked down now. The car park in Manchester.
I suppose some of the like one take approach to it, I reckon a lot of that's probably financial, though, wasn't it? Because time's money when you're in the studio.
I'm not sure whether it was, because when we were with Phonogram, it was the same thing. You might get 2 or 3 shots at it, you know, then, you know, because they were paying the bill. No, it was a great way of working. It forced you to get your act together. And basically, you know, that's what's happening now with House of All. We've took that on board, or Martin has. I don't want to go on about House of All, but that's the way we recorded the 2 albums that we've done. No preparation whatsoever. Because I said to Steve, why don't we go in the rehearsal room and knock something up? But nothing ever happened until the day of the recording. And luckily, it all worked out, you know. And I did feel the spirit of Mark, thinking, God, what must he be thinking now? You know, if you could see what we were doing. And not upset. Most people are right behind it, you know. There's 1 or 2 who won't like it that we're doing. We're not doing full stuff, obviously. But anyway, it's not a podcast about that, is it? I just thought I'd mention it.
I'm happy to talk about any of it, Simon. It's all part of the rich tapestry. Your style, I mean, we love, like, you know, the very precise kind of stuff, especially of that era that you talk about, shift work and so on, where it really, really suited, you know, in my opinion, kind of your style, but very, very different to Carl. How did you feel about coming in and playing a lot of songs that maybe he didn't?
Well, I understand, you know, Carl's very good. He's a different style of drummer to me. But I've studied the drums on This Nation's Saving Grace, and I could do all of them pretty much. Of course, when I started doing the tour, before we started doing the play, Hey Luciani, we were playing stuff off This Nation's Saving Grace on the Ben Sinister tour later in '86. So it didn't faze me or anything. I was doing my own thing. I still do my own thing to this day.
Yeah.
And it's better that way. You know, you put your own little bit of an identity on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carl was quite happy that I took over from him. There was no animosity at all. In fact, he was dead sure. Eventually, he did come back, of course, in the early 90s. And I let it be known I wasn't happy to all and sundry. I didn't want another drummer. And I said to him, I don't mind as long as he has a couple of timbales, a cymbal, a cowbell. And in fact, that worked much better for me, filling in on the percussive side. Although we did have a couple of gigs only where there was 2 drum kits, but I didn't like it because we're flamming all over the place. You know what I mean by flamming on the drum? Yeah. Which is why I insisted that on the new band, House of All, I'm working to a metronome. And so there's no debate about, is it too fast? Is it too slow? Bang, that's it every night.
Well, the story that I heard, and I don't know if it came directly from you, was that when Burns came back on that tour, which was cerebral caustic era or light user syndrome around that era,
round about that time,
and he came on with just like a hi-hat or something, and night after night he was procuring more and more percussion and dropped pieces of a drum kit from somewhere. So by the end of the first week, he had a full kit on stage or something.
It did get bigger and bigger. When he wasn't selling his hi-hats in San Francisco pawn shop. But Yeah, but about the time we got to middle class revolt, there's a story, of course. I'd been on holiday in Tunisia with my dad. There was no mobile phones then. People had them, but it's 1994, 95. I got back, I went to Steve's house, and his wife said, "Oh, they're in a studio in North Wales." I bombed it down in my Golf GTI down the motorway. No sat-nav, no nothing. Found this studio in North Wales, screeched up outside. Heard somebody playing drums, and I thought, that is Carl. He's got Carl in behind my back as punishment for going holiday. Walked in through the French glass door, like I was about to rip his head off, Carl. And he got up. He was genuinely a bit worried, I think, Carl, who, by the way, has resurfaced, Carl, recently.
Really?
There's
Wow.
been some contact, with Paul Hanley, and emails to and fro, and he's retired now, apparently.
Wow.
Carl. I've nobody's seen him, but he's still out in the sticks in Lancashire.
Well, glad
So
to
I
hear that.
believe.
Yeah, because he was off the
Yeah.
radar for a long,
I
long
got on
time.
great with Carl. Despite that, I got on with him great, So,
Reading in Brix's book, she wasn't overly complimentary about Carl.
well, he had his hygiene issues, if you like. But he did kind of, he was kind of like Mark's lieutenant by the time we got to that period. Mark was my mate when I first joined, and then me and him would go out a lot together, whether it be the Hacienda or a techno club in Munich or wherever we were. We'd go, leave them two, Steve and Craig. We'll go out. Come on, let's go. And they'll always have a great time with Mark, But while we're doing these first gigs, European, America too, in '86, he was writing the Hey Luciani play.
Yeah.
Now I'd seen him on the bus with a copy of David Yellop's In God's Name. That's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah, grab it. Go on,
Yeah,
carry on.
have you? Let's have a look. So it was quite a thick book.
Well, Simon?
No, I didn't. I probably were reading Viz comic or something like that.
Damn good.
I've left it to Brendan's read the book. I'm still on the Viz annual.
It's quite fun, actually. It's a lot of mystery.
That's got a different cover. That's got a different cover to the one Mark had. His was black. That must be a second edition or something.
Probably.
But he was always reading it, and he was telling us he'd written this play, Hey Luciani, and I've got a program here just to try and sort of it's original program. What fascinates me is who wrote there's a bit inside here about the band members and the actors: Leigh Bowery, Mr. Michael Clark, Simon Rogers, Craig Scanlon, Steve Hanley, Simon J. Wolstencroft, spelt with 2 O's, which kind of bothered me a little bit, but I was still getting paid, so I didn't mind. And it says, his photogenic looks and congenial friendly manner speak volumes transferred to the rhythm of his percussion and acting charisma.
Nice.
Now, I just wondered, having read this morning, who actually wrote those sleeve notes on the programme, But it was all very new, and to me and the other people in the band, what we're doing a play now, what's this about? But we were getting wages, a salary, which was a great salary. Once we'd signed, Beggar's Banquet, we joined up with them, signed a new deal. The money tripled from the chefing wages that I'd demanded that I get, the first 6 months. I must say here at this point, I get very confused, the memories of this period, between Hey Luciani and I Am Curious, Orange, the ballet.
Yeah.
I do remember, we must have done some rehearsals somewhere, but I can't remember where. Possibly at the Riverside Theatre by the Thames there, the back of the Hammersmith Odeon, which, we wouldn't have had many rehearsals. And of course, I did have a speaking part. I played a corrupt cardinal. Can't remember the card. Oh, actually, I'll tell you what the cardinal was called here. Hang on. Narrator, where am I? Right. Cardinal Villo.
Right, yeah.
A corrupt cardinal. There is a picture online somewhere of me with my skull cap on, the crucifix, rosary beads, whatever, and the cloak or whatever they call them that the clergy wear in the Vatican, with a red sash round my waist. And I did have a speaking part. I was very, very nervous. I can talk to people now, anybody, down this age. Steve Hanley. He was he was John Paul, the Pope, John Paul II, the Pope being by John Paul, Pope Paul I, which I remember seeing on TV, of course, the smoke coming out of the thing after he died. I think it was after about 30 days. And of course, there's always been a connection between Nazis and the Vatican, and letting the Nazis escape to South America using their funds, their money, their mafia connections. It's all very interesting. So I thought Mark hit on a good thing there with the play. Although the play itself, I don't think any of us could make head or tail of it the way it was put together. It's, you know, commandos shouting loud, you know, with bricks and marsh. I was more concerned with the actual performance on the drums. And we did we did the music for it. So I'd do a speaking line, maybe, I don't know, 50 words or something. Leigh Bowery was my saviour, because Leigh Bowery, who played Leigh Bowery was Marcinkus, that's right, yeah. He was lovely, because he's obviously done acting before, and he helped me prompt me the lines when we were actually doing the performance. Yeah. Got a full show every night. I don't know how long it lasted. Do you? Was it 2 weeks?
It was 2 weeks, which is probably 10, 14 performances. One of the things when we've been putting it together is there's a lot of great stuff in there, but yeah, it might not make a lot of sense originally. So what we've been trying to do is to make sure that when people watch it, and we always give Mark the benefit that he had an idea, and he did mean all of the, you know, implications of the lyrics and the words. So we've really tried to make it make sense. But did you kind of get the impression, like as you saw it night after night, that it was becoming more clear what was happening, or is it still by the end you were like, this is madness?
Not really, because I was just concerned about doing the performance on the kit more than anything. As I remember it, I just had a floor tom and a snare drum, which I didn't really like, because I like to have a bass drum, you know, as well. But we did it. Guest informant, I remember we did, which I used to love doing. Some of the other ones, the other music, Mark will sing us, I think we might have. Did we do that one?
Yeah, actually, Si, this is a good time to segue in. I'm going to play there's about 6 or 7 songs in the play, and I'm going to play, if we can listen to a few of them and then get your take on like your remembrance of recording or performing them songs, that'd be great. So I'll play a few, and then I'll play Dr. Faustus and the Hey Luciani. Oh yeah. And Mark
Dr. Faustus was good. Yes. Hey Luciani, of course, the theme tune, wasn't it?
Very first thing you did, I believe.
It was with Ian Brody in Amazon Studios. No, was it Amazon? Yes, it was, on the Brookside set in Liverpool.
Right.
And Mark and I drove over there, and basically it was on a drum machine, and he got me to play a floor tom.
said, hey, Luciani, the future's here today. I said, hey, Luciani, a proper 3 days. They made out you were ultranauts. I had no time for your Christianity. You paid with your life for the treachery. And the future's here today. The The world was rained with spats of blood, the victim castigate, and yet part of us. The thoughts in eyes are seen under a hood, but in my own eyes and in my own blood. Mark will sink us.
So yeah, we heard the Hey Luciani, we heard Mark will sink us, and we heard Dr. Faustus off Ben Sinister. Some really beautiful piano on that Mark will sink us. I'm guessing is Simon Rogers. Anytime there's anything super
it would have been,
we're thinking that Simon Rogers.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Sinkus, my least favourite of those three. But Dr. Faustus, I remember, well, it was Paul who played on Dr. Faustus off the Ben Sinister track. It's the only one he did. I did the rest.
Yeah.
Or it was a drum machine. It's great. It's very dark, Dr. Faustus. You know, when the chorus comes in, I was kind of waiting and waiting. When the song starts for the chorus to come in, it seemed like an eternity before it went to that. Yeah.
I really like the way that the guitar, the bass and guitar, like sync up to the drums at the beginning of Dr. Faustus, because it's like it's not dead straightforward, is it?
I disagree with you. The drums, you mean, on Dr. Faustus, pretty easy.
Yeah.
I think so. And we did it live anyway, but I didn't record it, the drums on that. But I did you know, the rest of it, you know, Mr. Pharmacist included, which has got a video to it, and it's old footage with Carlin. And I don't know whether you know about that. Who did the video from the Pharmacist?
No idea, but isn't that the one with it got Leigh Bowery kind of wandering around the streets for the Mr. Pharmacist video? It's very funny, but somebody
must have knocked it up after I quit or whatever, the band, you know, in '97. But yeah, great memories of Hey Luciani and Ian Brody. You know, I really like Ian Brody and his work. It's not a guilty pleasure, the Lightning Seas. Long-standing tunes that are fantastically recorded. Maybe, you know, I'd like to record it with him again one day, maybe, who knows. But I remember in the megaphone, of course, which was omnipresent. He used to get them from Tandy, as it was known, plastic, gold, and they usually break after, you know, sort of 6 months. He'd get another one. I think by that time, American, but you know, you think you got them in America most of the time when we were there. Right. Tandy by Realistic, which of course used to wake us up, you know, on the bus. Turn it on and Yankee Doodle Dandy on the preset. You're dead loud in your ear, and you go, bleed it out. So you have to be careful of that. I've just been reading the notes, actually. It was Diane Barton doing the live sound for us. I don't know the feedback. Eddie, God rest his soul, was there doing the monitors, probably was. And there was a girl called Dawn Bassett, who was the runner, who ended up being my drum tech briefly when on the tour that Mark locked himself in the toilets. And I knew he'd locked himself in the toilets and heard him trying to get out. Fucking get me out of here, kicking the door. But I thought, I'm now going to leave him in there for, you know, 10, 20 minutes before we have to go on. You know, because he might have been bugging me that day.
Brilliant. So,
no, I did love Mark. I did, you know, but it's when he got Carlin behind my back. The opinion of him had changed by then, and it kind of started to turn rotten for me when Bricks and him split up. Because she'd rein him in, you know.
It's like Extricate, right? I remember you telling the story on Extricate where I think he got rid of Martin and Marsha on that tour. Yes, so basically, like within a few years, like within a year, I think Martin had come and gone, Marsha had gone, and then Bricks had gone, and that must have been a big change. And now I'm getting off into the rest of the career. I go on forever if I start on that path.
It was a big change, but we're still getting the same money.
Question for you, Simon, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
Probably, you know, my second favourite Fall track is Christmas with Simon. So I was wondering what Christmas with Simon with you would have been like when you were in the Fall?
Christmas. Well, I remember recording that down in Oxfordshire, and he was great like that. You know, he realised I could use one finger on a bass note on a keyboard or piano, and I'm really glad of the opportunity that he gave me. Of course, that's how I wrote Free Range, the music for it. And later stuff, Ian Brown's Golden Gaze track again, and through the keyboard that Mark had bought me. But Christmas is now, we all go to Lulu, my girlfriend's family, up in North Manchester, and Mark actually met Lulu before he passed and gave her the seal of approval. Although he didn't say it, I knew that's what he was thinking, because she's from Blakely, which is actually where he ended up, Mark, you know, in the crematorium. I'm so glad I went to that funeral of Mark. His sister Caroline, she said, "Oh, he loved you, Mark," which I knew anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he loved me. I loved him too. Back in the day, I don't know, one time I went to Edinburgh for Christmas with my first wife, because I got a taste for Edinburgh after Mark had been up there. Because I drove him up there with his, you know, his worldly belongings, you know, his vinyl records, his leather coat, his pair of shoes, couple of suits, up there off Princess Street, you know, lovely Georgian flat and terrace. Yeah, that was a good time, really.
Yeah.
That's when he wrote Edinburgh Man, of course. In fact, on the House of All tour, we had a film company, Esther Middleton, who's a director or whatever, wanted to do a documentary about Mark and his Edinburgh years. So she interviewed me, and when the House of All were in Edinburgh, she interviewed Martin, because he was around that time. So was Steve, of course. So we interviewed them, and Grant Showbiz, who's doing the sound actually on a lot of these gigs that we're doing next week. Not all of them, unfortunately, because Grant produced and recorded the live CD album that's going to be on tour, you know, for sale, although it's limited. So by the time this comes out, they'll all gone. Yeah, she filmed the gig. I had a team, you know, of assistants with fancy cameras, and it looks the part, you know, it looks quality stuff. You know, it's good enough for Sky Arts or whatever, you know. Grant Showbiz, you know, he used to do the Smiths, of course, and the Fall before that. He came back, and he looks great, Grant. Looks so young. He's cleaned his lifestyle up. Instead of going out getting smashed now after the sound check, I've got to go on to a swimming pool now. I'm going to get the bus to the swimming pool, you know, the local, which is amazing, and he looks great. But back then, it'd be party time, you know. Hacienda, probably Christmas time for sure. Certainly New Year's Eve. But you know, I still have nights out. In fact, I'm having a night out tonight, which might sound a bit wild, but anyway, we'll see how we go.
In your podcast and your book stuff, you mentioned Hacienda a lot, and there was talk, and I think I got this from your podcast, maybe Jackie was saying that after the play finished, I think there was talk of trying to take it other places. One of the things that we heard is that Mark was planning on typing up the script and getting other people to put it on, and maybe even taking it to the Hacienda, do it in Manchester, do it in other places.
Oh.
Did you hear anything about that, or was it just done? When it was done, it was gone?
No, I never heard that before. Although they did love him at the Hacienda, because we all had, you know, honorary passes, and you know, we used to go quite a lot, me and Mark, to the Hacienda. You know, believe it or not, before it got really packed out.
Yeah.
When it first started in '82, a play, it just seemed a one-off, and what a great time we had. You know, staying in digs with Jackie. She was staying, the lovely Jackie, with us in the digs in Earl's Court, in like you know, flat basically, with about 3 bedrooms. We used to drive home after the gig on Saturday night, I think, from the Riverside back to Manchester, with Diane driving the van, and Daft Eddie, Feedback Eddie, I should say, the monitor man. It was Mark who called him Daft Eddie, but I get in trouble, you know, when I say that nowadays, because he's not here, you know. But then we come back on a Tuesday, maybe, for the first performance of that week.
So if we could play a few more tracks. So you also played Guest Informant, Living Too Late, and a song called Sleep Debt Snatches. So I will play a bit of those things. And one called Half Found Borman as well. I'll play a little bit of a few of those, and then I'll ask you. I especially want to know about Guest Informant, whether it was you what dobbed Mark in at the for throwing your duvet out the window. Whether you dobbed him in at the hotel. That's the story.
No, the Guest Informant was a magazine. coffee table magazine in
Yeah,
a Hyatt hotel
right.
in Toronto or somewhere.
Story that someone chucked your duvet out the window, and the next morning you went to complain at the front desk, and you dobbed Mark in and said he'd thrown your duvet out the window and he got in trouble. Is there any truth to these rumors?
I ain't no grass. I ain't no grass.
I always thought that. I thought there's no chance Simon did that.
No way. It was giving me a great opportunity. I remember where that was. It was in Hamburg, and a shoot like the CNN tower. It was like that, dead tall, and it was bricks and Marcia. They were in my room. It might have been mine, but they went to collect it straight away, pretty much, and picked it up. 30 floors below.
Nice.
But I ain't no grass.
All right, let's have a listen to a few of these tunes. Indeed. So
interesting.
Yeah, we had a half-time Bowman from a Janice Long session that you did, which is definitely a rounder version than the one that's on the B side of Goes to My House. And we had guest informant and Living Too Long, which is a different version of Living Too Late.
Yes, they are, aren't they? Well, guest informant was going so well, and then suddenly that voice comes in. Was that actually on the vinyl?
I think so. This one of the few, because he does it a couple of times. Very famously on Paintwork, on This Nation's Saving Grace, but on Guest Informant, where he just seems to have recorded his dictaphone over the top and gone Stephen Craig, something about that's on the original, I think.
Oh, I never knew that.
Might be a single version. I don't know. I get mixed up with all the versions, but
okay. I like the first one, which was, what was that one?
That was Half Found Borman, which the one about the word bricks is basically shouting like words about Martin Bormann. In the original version, it's really wiry and wonky, but that Janice Long one's got, and I think because of what you're doing is holding it together that with that really nice beat.
Right. Is that what that first one, Hideous Noise Group?
Yeah.
Is that what they mean by?
Probably.
Must be. I don't really remember recording that one at all. But Living Too Late I liked, and Guest Informant, brilliant. And we did both those live on the circuit, but I don't remember doing Half Found Borman at all, live. Don't think it would have worked, really.
Yeah, it might have been a recording. In the play, I'm not sure if some of it was pre-recorded or whether, I know you did
it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. On the back here of the programme, it's advertising the singles, Living Too Late, stroke Hot Aftershave Bot. I loved Hot Aftershave Bot. Mr. Pharmacist, Lucer over Lancashire. Hey Luciani, stroke Entitled. And Off Ben Sinister. It was just, none of those were in, were they? Hot Aftershave Bot we didn't do in the play. Black Entitled.
No, basically those
you played them all now. You played them all, haven't you?
Yeah, there's another one called Sleep Debt Snatches that I haven't played yet, but I'll play that at the end. But as far as I know, now there is, again, we haven't got everything, but I think there was hints that maybe Riddler and Gross Chapel Grenadiers off Ben Sinister might have been bits of it played or whatever. But I think the live stuff, I think you might have just played those four in real time. Dr. Faustus, Luciani. Guest Informant and Living Too Late, and the others might have been pre-recorded. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, sure. No, it's just it brings back some memories that of Marsha in a commando's outfit, with a mini skirt, a bit Kalashnikov. Brick shouting a lot. What else? Yeah, Leigh Bowery. The other actors, I didn't really get. We used to sort of go our separate ways at the end of the performance when the crowd had filtered out. We'd have a drink, various other things, and off we'd go, in our own direction. Although we used to get the tram, right into the West End of London with Leigh Bowery and Michael Clark and some people looking at them like they had two heads, Well, they did. Leigh Bowery had a big crash helmet with spikes on it.
Yeah.
I remember that a lot. I remember the first day that the press guy being there, a journalist from the Times, and Mark strutting around in his white Levi 501s, riding boots, leather, a white shirt, impeccably dressed, and a riding crop. He absolutely relished it, being there, being the director, writer of the play. It was nice to see that. He didn't hit anybody, as far as I know, with the riding crop. But yeah, I've just got nothing but good memories, really. It was so new to me.
Yeah, it sounds brilliant.
There's all these plans, about the ballet then, of course, after that. And we were constantly busy at that point.
I'm just trying to work it out. So you must have been absolutely mad, full on from when you first started, because you did Ben Sinister, all them singles, the play, then straight into Friends Experiment and Curious Orange, all in like 3 years.
Yeah. Got great. It's not my favourite album, Friends Experiment. I do love Bremen that. It was always a great workout to do. It could go on 10 minutes.
It's just bloody relentless, that one.
I know. But I like it. It's so urgent,
Great.
And of course, he wrote that. I think when we were in Hamburg, because he told me about the blood coming down the walls of his hotel.
Yeah.
In Hamburg.
Yeah, Simon.
Sorry, Bremen, not Hamburg, Bremen. Yeah. And we had a game of football. I remember that in Bremen, and he told me about he'd seen the blood coming down the walls last time he was in. He was scared. I think this old hotel, there might have been the Nazi elite might have stayed there and he got some vibes off it, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bremen night.
Did you ever get the feeling that he was a precog? Did you ever buy into that idea that Smithy could see the future?
He could just cut the atmosphere with a knife as soon as he walked in anywhere. People were like, fucking hell, who's that? So if you consider that a power, a psychic power, then yes, I do. Although he never went on about it. I know he didn't like anybody using a Ouija board. It was discussed once and he wasn't happy. And one time when we were on tour in Montreal, Toronto again, Dave Bush, our keyboard at the time, had foolishly left this pentacle. Yeah, we met this guy with a big leather coat who was like a cult leader at the gig in Detroit, I think. And he'd give us as a gift like this lead ingot with a ribbon round it with a pentangle on it. And Mark didn't like that at all. And he said, you better not leave them about. Throw them away, throw them away. It's going to curse the band. It's going to curse the band. And Dave left it on the table on the coach outside. He was asleep in his bunk. Mark came on. What the fucking hell is this? And he had a cup of hot tea, opened the curtain, threw it over there. Cold in tea. Shouldn't laugh, really. But, so he didn't like to, he was aware of, he might have known people who were psychics and what have you. But he didn't, Ouija board was out of the question, a night out in the hotel when we've got a night off. Should we get a Ouija board and have a go, And he didn't, he said, no, you don't do it, I don't want you to do it, sort of thing. But what's it called, that song? Psychic, what? That he wrote.
Psychic Dancehall?
Dancehall.
Yeah.
Is there anybody there?
I think you might. Ish. Is anybody there? Yeah. What is that? One of the lyrics on it?
That's how it opens. That's how it starts. Is there anybody there?
Does it?
Yeah.
Does it? Oh, I can play that.
Let's have a listen. Yeah. Go on, keep talking. I'll bring it up. We'll have a quick listen.
In your book, you mentioned the song Chi Chi Chi. Did you ever play that or record it? Done for Eurovision?
Chi Chi Chi.
Yeah.
Oh, Chi Chi Chi, yeah. We never record on a little tape recorder we did, round at his house again. And he was kind of dead serious. It was never going to happen and get presented as a, English entry. But it was, Chi, 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 very simple. Who knows, years later he might have been able to do one.
Still time. I'll play in a second. Ezra, did you have a question for Si before I play this?
Just going back a bit to the Friends Experiment album. This is, for me, like it's a really interesting period for the Fall because it seems like the band were doing some of their best work and then they released this album, Friends Experiment, which, it does have a few tracks I'm quite fond of, but I'm like, where is Guest Informant? Where is Hey Luciani? Where is Sleep Debt? There are so many great tracks. Like that could have been the best album of the band's career. And it just kind of befuddles me. Like you have all this great material and somehow I presume Mark decided we're not going to put it on the album,
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I don't think the record company would have been overjoyed at the final results. There wasn't that much commercial, stuff on it. I don't think was Victoria on that.
Yeah, Victoria was on the original track listing, but there's a lot of great tracks around that, like Ezra's alluding to, that weren't on there. While you got things like Get a Hotel and Steak Place on there, which I
never really liked Steak Place, really. Or Get a Hotel, if I'm honest.
No,
not for me.
They didn't get a lot of love on our podcast.
And I'm guessing it wasn't really a democracy, so you probably weren't asked for your opinion on the track listing of Friends Experiment.
It could have been a lot more successful than it was, I suppose. It's one of my least favourite albums, really. Personally, the best one I played on was Ben Sinister. If not for Realm of Dusk alone, it's one of the first things we did.
Great track. So,
I just love it.
Sorry, I will play Psychic Dancehall and I'll play that Sleep Debt to finish. We'd love to invite you back in 6 months or a year and do your top 10 fall tracks. So just talk through the full kind of 11 years because there's so much good stuff in there. We'd love it if you were up for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Possible. Brilliant.
Just let us know, fellas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anybody there? Yeah! your head and take a deep breath. Think how great God's golden assurance is in setbacks and great success. But bad dreams through sleep dead. Hold the grip, make a mark on your head. Your body and legs take the rightful rest. While you're left to hell's dispatches. Grip the mind, kids, close the hatches. Here are some sleep dead snatches.
Heavy beat coming in there, Simon.
Hello, I've not heard Sleep Snatcher since the day it came out, I don't think. Psychic Dancehall, I really liked it when it got going. And who played drums on that one? Do you know?
Psychic Dancehall, what that would have been. Mike Leigh played drums on Dragnet. He was only in the band for about a year. Came on, he was a cabaret drummer.
Right.
Just a year.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I did meet Mike Leigh at a festival a few years ago in Yorkshire. He was doing a talk or whatever, you know. Psychic Dancehall. Yeah, I mean, I've probably not heard that ever in its entirety.
It's off Dragnet.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's the first track on Dragnet.
Excuse my ignorance.
Long time before your time.
Still, Realm of Dust still sounds majestic. As I say, when I got in the band in Abbey Road and recording that, I thought, wow, I've been really lucky here, landed on my feet here, you know, with this band. But yeah, I enjoyed the memories there, you know, those songs they've given me.
Yeah, and well, going back maybe to guest informant as well, you, Craig, and Steve just locking together, you know, and obviously you're playing again with Steve, but you know, again, I'm indulging myself too far into the outside of our Luciani remit, but whatever. While you're here, I'm going to ask you, what's that relationship with Steve? That between you and Steve as that rhythm section? How did that just work from day one? Or did that build over time? How do you communicate? Or you just, because it works together well?
I wish he would communicate with me more when we're doing gigs, because he keeps looking at his brother. Gives me a cursory look now and again. But I'm doing my own thing. You know, they're probably communicating which part of the song comes next. Is it the right time? And I'm just doing my own thing. You know what I mean? But it'd be nice. But whenever he does look round at me, Steve, I always have a smile, you know, just like the old days. And I have missed his very distinctive bass sound that Steve has got, you know, that a lot of F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T fans love the band. You know, a lot of them like the band because of his sound, I think.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T sound
so
right there.
Still the same. You know when he's on it, Steve, you know, when he's enjoying it and getting his head down. And we've got that again now after all these years. We never worked together over the last intervening, whatever it is. I left in 97, 25, 28 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Although I've seen him now and again with Steve, and it's always great to see him. And you know, I love Steve to death. It's good.
Thanks very much, Simon, for coming on. It's been delightful. And yeah, we hope we can see you when we put the play on in a few weeks. Good luck with the House of All Stuff, that second LP. And yeah, we'd love to have you back in 6 months or so and go through the whole period of your time with this fantastic band and talk about the other stuff. I mean, we've not even touched on the fact you were in the Smiths and you the Stone Roses are an early version at some point. Literally my three favorite bands in my entire life, the Smiths, the Stone Roses and the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T, and you were in all three of them at one point. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
But
I saw something on the internet which and you know, this struck me as not that believable, but it was claiming that the Smiths called themselves the Smiths because they were kind of fans of Mark E. Smith.
I don't know whether that's true at all.
Yeah, I can't quite believe it myself.
the Smiths was an ordinary name because there was Classic Nouveau and Depeche Mode and all these, Weird and Duran. They wanted to be as far as away as possible from that kind of style of name for the band, and indeed the style of music, which they were. And when they took off, I thought, Jesus, I made a right mistake here. But I just wasn't into Morrissey, really, as a person or his voice. And crucially, Andy Rourke, the bass player, God rest his soul, wasn't on the session that first time. And if he'd been there, he would have thrown a bit of funk in. And I might have thought, I'll come back for a bit more of this. Everything would have been different.
Yeah, exactly. He was a very funky bass player. And we listened to bits of the Freak Party stuff that you and him did in the early days when he sadly passed away a few months ago. Next time you're back, we'd love to get into all that stuff and indulge ourselves, because we could go on forever asking you questions about this stuff, Simon.
Well,
all the best, Simon. Thank you very much.
Right.
Look after yourself.
Have a good weekend, fellas.
See
you now.
Take care, Simon.
Your mind into a light.